It's like
I like.
And how about this beautiful theater at Art Center? It's so amazing that the kids have a great place to show their films and that the school has a place where directors can come and it's state of the art and it's so beautiful. I remember seeing the designs, but this is actually, we've been so busy filming that this is the first time we actually saw it really completed. So it's so nice to be here. And how's our folks at Vero doing?
I think on the Vero side, we're ready when we're ready.
We're ready, we're live! Yay!
Someone knows we're live.
Okay, so you guys just indulge me for a few moments here, but Zack and I wanted to say a huge thank you to all the people who have made this weekend possible, to our generous sponsors, to Warner Brothers in DC, in particular Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi. To our gracious host for the next 2 days, Art Center College of Design. Our host for Sunday, Universal Cinema, AMC at City Walk, and IMAX. And to Vero for hosting our live stream. Eamon, we wish you were here. I hope you're watching. To Jim Lee, who did these amazing art for our t-shirts. And I hope I don't butcher their name, but Shu Jie Ho Zhang, an Art Center student who did the Art Center posters, and John Stanford, and works for creating all those amazing posters. To our printers, Midnight Oil and Buffalo Specialties, who also donated all the shirts. To Bonds, to Weta Workshop, to Company 3, to our food and beverage sponsors, Anheuser-Busch, La Pizzeria Company, Hot Jam, Sodexo, to Superhero Charity, and 3 Ronin. And thanks to all our panelists, moderators, and you volunteers who really helped setting all of this up. To AFSP for all their help and support, not only for this event, but also for their support for Zack and I, and also to the community throughout the years. And to Wesley Collar, because without Wes, this event would not have come together. Wes. We are so thankful for all Wes's hard work and dedication, and most importantly, for the friendship. He is family. And most importantly, to the fans. A special shout out to everyone that is online around the world. It is truly amazing what this fan community has done, raising over $1 million for AFSP. But even more importantly, creating awareness and much needed discussions on mental health and suicide prevention. This amazing fan community has contributed to AFSP's ability to invest in new research grants to better understand and prevent suicide. In the past 5 years, it has given 200,000 people life-saving education and resources through AFSP's signature program, Talk Saves Lives, an introduction to suicide prevention. This program provides participants with a clear understanding of suicide, including the most up-to-date research and data on suicide prevention. Our fan community has helped AFSP to advocate for suicide prevention and mental health by sending over 129,000 messages to public officials over the past 5 years. Advocates had a chance to share their stories and promote suicide prevention. As a testament to their efforts, over 109 pieces of legislation at the federal and state level has become law since 2018. Over the past 5 years, AFSP has hosted annually more than 400 international survivors of suicide lost day events globally. AFSP has also fulfilled over 1,000 requests for their Healing Conversations program annually. Both programs allow those touched by suicide a chance to talk, be heard, and help heal from their losses. These are just some of the ways that this community has contributed to AFSP's life-saving efforts. Now, more than ever, this work is critical, and post-COVID, the statistics are staggering. 1 in 5 people will experience some sort of mental health condition each year. The latest CDC data tells us that suicide is the 12th leading cause of death in the US. And although males make up 50% of the population, they're 80% of the suicides. Between 2020 and 2021, suicide deaths increased 4.79%. And most alarming, our kids are struggling more than ever before. Suicide is the 3rd leading cause of death for adolescents aged 15 through 19. And our young girls are now more at risk than ever before. 2021 data from the CDC Youth Risk Behavioral Study reveals that 3 in 5 girls felt persistently sad and hopeless. More than 1 in 4 girls reported that they seriously considered attempting suicide in 2021. And more than 1 in 10 girls reported that they attempted suicide in 2021. And almost half of our LGBTQ+ students seriously considered attempting suicide. This news is devastating. The time to act is now. We must make mental health a priority and advocate for more investment in suicide research and prevention on a national level. Everyone has a role to play in preventing suicide, and together we can learn the risks and warning signs and encourage those who struggle to seek help. We have shown that as a community, we can make a difference. Our actions have impact, but unfortunately, our job is far from done. So what else can we do? Learn the signs of someone who may be at risk for suicide. Reach out to someone who you think may be struggling. Connect those who are struggling to help. Share 988, the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. With everyone's help, we can continue to move out of the darkness and into the light. We can give those who are struggling a chance for hope, and we can make a real difference. Thank you again for all your support. You know that this is such a personal thing for Zack and I, and it means so much to us. If you need help or information, you can go to afsp.org or call or text 988 if you are in crisis. And also, if you want to donate, please go to afsp.org/full-circle-donate. You know, thanks again for being here, whether you're here in person or here online. It means so much to us.
Debbie, thanks so much for that. The worthiest of worthy causes, so we really appreciate everything that you and Zack have done, so thank you. So we're going to spend a little time talking about the movie that you guys just saw and other things that you may want to ask us about. So let me introduce everybody. I'll start with my own self, and then we'll work our way up the food chain. I'm Ross Lamanna, chair of the undergrad and graduate film departments here at Art Center College of Design. It's also Zach's alma mater. And next to me is the man who is responsible for a lot of the eye candy that you saw, Alex McDowell, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you so much. You're kind of famous around here, by the way, so thank you. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So thank you so much for being here. I'm just going to go down the line here. This man is a movie producer and a director and a writer and a cinematographer, and I'm probably missing a few things as a director, and he's so good at these things that he actually has a verse named after him. So not too many people can make that claim. So thank you, Zach, for being here, and I think we'll have some fun.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So next on the list there, you may know her as Major Carrie Ferris, the first person to say officially that Superman is hot.
No one has ever argued with that statement.
Nobody ever went, meh, not so much. Her real name is Christina Wren. She's an amazing actress, and we are so glad to have her here with us. So thank you, Christine.
Thanks for having me.
And then down there at the end, someone else who needs no introduction. I love that expression. You need no introduction. Deborah Snyder, who is an amazing force of nature, movie producer. What else can we say? Actually, the real Wonder Woman is what she's known around here. So thank you as well for being on the panel tonight.
Happy to be here.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask a couple questions. They're kind of from the film students, and then I'll kind of throw in one or two from the online streaming folks. And then we want to open it up to you guys to ask some questions. So think of some good ones. Stick your hand up. We'll call on you. We'll bring a mic over to you, and we'll get going. We're going to try to do this in about an hour. So let's see how that goes. So I thought maybe I'd start with Alex, because we were kind of in the green room watching the movie with the sound down, and I've seen it several times, but I haven't seen it in a while. I'm just sitting there with my mouth open, because your Krypton, it kind of, there's your Krypton now. There's no other Kryptons, you know. It's like you really define that, and certainly define their ships and everything. It's just gorgeous. And then of course we've got the, you can segue into Smallville, which is just like classic, you know, Rockwell Americana, and then we've got Metropolis, which is kind of normal with a little overlay, and it all seamlessly works together. So the students wanted to know what your visual references were, if any, because I know you dreamt a lot of this up just for this world, the literally world of Krypton that you made for us.
Yeah, thanks. Well, first, thank you for inviting me, Zach and David.
So awesome to have you. Thank you.
It's an honor to be here for this cause. And amazing to see the movie again. It's been a while for me, I'm afraid to say, and it's a great movie. So to your question, yes, there's a lot of influences. I mean, first of all, to have a chance to redesign the logo and to think about just the characteristics of this idea of the curves. First of all, the Superman S prompted the idea that there's no straight lines on Krypton. So as a designer, that was an underlying rule. So to go from that, we went to the organic. There's a photographer called Carl Blossfeldt, who you should check out, who was the first photographer to really photograph in extreme fine detail the sort of symmetry of plants. We looked at just a whole array of organic forms, shells and plants in this photography and Art Nouveau, but it all came down to this idea that the S prompts the entire visual language of Krypton. And it was to kind of build a history of that and to go back into a world where biology was the primary science, and the language itself, and and that premise really went through everything down to the lettering of the language, down to the very finest detail.
Great, thanks. That's amazing. It worked. I have a question for Christina, and this is a very important process question about how the motion picture business works. I read that you were cast in Man of Steel because Zack saw you in a hummus commercial. And now
This is true.
I want to first just take a moment to picture Zack watching a show that would have a hummus commercial in it.
By the way, it was not a obscure hummus commercial. It was a national spot. And I was watching mainstream television. It was like some obscure hummus channel. We're like,
Hummus R Us.
Yeah, and then you were like, Debbie, find out who that is. And I was like, what? Yeah, find out who that is. I want her to be in the movie.
Thank you for doing it.
So what I want to know, Christina, is like, you're home, you're minding your own business, phone rings. Mr. Zack Snyder would like you to be in a Superman movie because of your work in a hummus commercial. How did that play?
So I was living in New York at the time, and funny enough, the commercial did not play in New York. So it wasn't like I never saw it, and I didn't. Yeah. So it kind of came and went for me. I was happy to have a job. We filmed in Athens, which was cool. But I was out of town. I was at my friend's wedding, and I'm in the car with my parents and my then boyfriend and now husband. And so I get this email. I just check my phone, and I kind of laughed in the car, and I was like, bullshit. And my family was like, well, what? They saw my reaction. I was like, someone's punking me. Someone made up an email address, and this is ridiculous. And I had gotten an email from assistant at Warner Bros. Some, kind of, nameless email that said, hi, Christina, a Hollywood director has seen your hummus commercial and would like you to audition for an untitled Warner Brothers project. Please send us a tape of yourself doing these sides. And I was just like, this is someone really, I have a friend who made up an email address and is just making so much fun of me. And thankfully, really, I was in the car with my family. They were like, you have to do it. You have to. In the off chance this is real, you have to do it. So I, tape it, but it was 3 lines. I felt like an acting exercise from school that was an open scene. And I was like, okay, is this, and it was a different character at the time. And
wasn't the scene you coming into, I'm trying to remember this,
it was an office assistant first.
Was it? I'm trying
Yeah.
Because I remember. And did you do 2? Did you do a second?
It's
sent you,
5 of them.
Yeah,
That's what
I
I
sent
remember.
Yeah, I
so many
remember.
tapes.
5 different tapes.
It was 5
It
versions of the exact same line that were this is the angry version.
Yeah.
This is and I was like, see, I told you she was a genius.
Really though, because I was like, I don't know what kind of movie this is. Is this a comedy? Is it a drama? And then I, get a different thing back. They're like, they actually want you to audition for this character instead. And it was a military officer. Right. That was but I. So yeah, I went in. Yeah. But I was like, is this sci-fi? Is this a political movie? I don't know. So they very graciously watched a ridiculous amount of audition tapes from me. But yeah,
It was fun.
That's how it happened.
It's funny. I remember there's a line in the hummus commercial where you say, it's like this thing where there's this older Greek woman.
Yaya.
Who whatever Christina's character's doing, which is normal, she sees as really offensive. There's one scene where she says something, she's like, she's a prostitute. And she's just being normal, but it's it was really funny.
I'm a Lebanese gal, so the yes, the very judgmental grandmother is something I was
It landed
pretty
for you.
used
It
to.
landed.
Yeah, and it's like my character, whatever, is conservatively dressed and has this giant platter of food and is hosting, but all the grandma can do is judge and tell me I dress like a prostitute.
Yeah, even though like she's not dressed like a prostitute at all, very conservatively dressed. Yeah, it's pretty. It's anyway. I don't know if it's online. Where is that commercial? Is it anywhere?
I have no idea.
We should dig
Yeah,
it up. We should definitely dig it up.
they're getting a lot of free press from you right
Yeah,
now.
they really
though.
are.
Like, yeah.
Too bad we're not mentioning the name of the hummus. They're probably mad about that right now.
It was Athenos.
Athenos. Well, there you go, guys. You know where to send the checks.
One of our other sponsors for the evening.
You are welcome, Athenos.
Thank
That's
you for my
awesome.
career.
Yes, that's cool.
No kidding.
Anyway,
I got to see this.
all
spot.
true.
Yeah, there you go.
All true.
See, kids.
I can't remember how I if I recorded the commercial, because I remember I couldn't, I didn't have like a DVR. I remember it was 10 years ago. I think I shot it with my phone off the TV, so I could be like, oh, this is it. This is the commercial. It's all bad, yeah.
And I had a really terrible blog, and this is how the casting director found me. She told me later, yeah, because I had recently someone was like, you have to start a blog. This is the same thing now where they're like, you have to be on Instagram, And so I made a blog, and she found, but it was stupid, because I didn't know what to do. Yeah, so put yourself online, I guess, is the lame
That's
advice.
awesome. That's great.
That is awesome.
And what an amazing job in the movie, No. Yeah. I was right.
You now know how show business works. Welcome to it. So speaking of working in show business, Debbie Snyder, I was trying to do the math, and there are only a handful of people in our universe that produce movies of this size and this budget and what have you. And then there are way fewer women who are doing that. So, wow, pretty amazing.
Wow.
So I think a lot of people don't understand the word producer. It's like, well, what does that mean? And you see the credits and what have you. But and so obviously it could be a financing producer, like an executive producer, a creative producer, a budgeting, a line producer, and it can be more than one. So I'm curious how you define your role or roles as a producer. And then as a second part of this question, I'd love to hear, if you want to tell us, what's your favorite part of the gig and what's kind of like going to the dentist?
Well, the budget is kind of like going to the dentist, because no matter how much money you have, it's never enough money. It's just, whether it's a small movie or a big movie, it's never enough, and you always want to do more. And those are hard discussions to have, I think, with the studio and with your departments who are presenting their budgets and everything. So I don't like that part. I think planning it and finding the people and putting it all together and figuring out the methodology. I see my role, it's my job to bring the director's vision to the screen and to fight for that vision. And it doesn't mean we don't disagree about things, because we do, but sometimes.
Occasionally.
Occasionally. But he's, at the end of the day, the director, and it's my job, and we talk
I thought you were
about
gonna say,
it.
at the end of the day, he just does what I say.
No. No, at the end of the day, I think it's important, especially in our relationship, not just being a husband and wife team, but as our relationship as producer and director, to be supportive. And we might debate and talk about things, but then we always have a united front. So if we're going to the studio, or if there's something, whatever it is, and whoever we're talking to, we have a united front. And I think and we have each other's back. And I think that's everyone we surround ourselves with on the crew. A lot of people we've worked with for many years. It's like a family. It's people we trust. And allowing them to actually do their jobs and do their job as well, just kind of makes it all, work. But I don't know, my job is crazy, because sometimes it's about growing wheat, or, you become an expert on these really strange things. But I think at the end of the day, it's about, figuring out what the plan is, from casting to casting your crew, figuring out the schedule, the budget, and then all the things and problems that come along the way, because every best laid plan gets redone in production. So you're always starting over, and you just have to kind of be nimble on your feet. But I love it. Like, when I say going to the dentist, like, yeah, the money is always something that I don't really like talking about. But, like, to be able to create these stories that will live on, much longer than us, that touch people in a way, makes them laugh, makes them think. I feel so lucky to be able to do that.
Great, thanks. I mean, for those of you who haven't been on movie sets, just watch the credits and you see, how many people are involved. For those of you who have, you realize what an undertaking it is. I'm sure if the guys who planned D-Day came back and saw what Debbie does, they would go, "Oy, I'll leave that to you. That looks too hard." So anyway, I have a question for Mr. Zack Snyder here, and I apologize if you've answered this for the fans before. I don't know the answer to this question, nor did the students. What attracted you to the DC universe and these particular characters? And then what was the genesis for your vision that is so specific and so defining of this, that's why they call it the Snyderverse. It's fascinating because it's been done and you did it again differently and better. So where did that come from?
Well, thanks. Yeah, Zach. Well, thank you, sir. That's fine. That's kind. And also, the only thing I'll add to what Debbie was saying is that, we were talking about, when she was just talking about growing wheat, for the movie we just made, we had to grow a lot of wheat. Space wheat, but wheat.
10 football field,
Yeah.
right? Like,
It's
yeah.
space wheat.
10
Gotta
football
call it,
fields.
you put space in front of anything in a space movie. You say space and then the thing. Anyway, but we learned all that stuff on Man of Steel because we had to grow all that corn. So we were corn farmers before we were wheat farmers. And so, yeah, there was a lot of agricultural. Probably you didn't learn. You guys should have a class, maybe, something to consider, like, just agricultural. So you have a little bit of like, oh, no, we can't start then because the corn won't be ready, of course. This is the wrong weather. It's the wrong, so Anyway, as far as my attraction to DC characters goes, I've been a fan. I was a huge fan of a comic book called The Dark Knight Returns, and when I was growing up, and also Watchmen, and yeah. Not a bad comic book if you're into comic books. Anyway, and so I just kind of had I had a relationship with Frank because of 300, and we had done Watchmen, and so we were kind of in this headspace, comic book headspace, and I had met Chris. And he had, I think, for whatever reason, Chris didn't want to do a Superman movie, and David had written this script, and so it was really a matter of him finding someone to do this Superman movie, and he approached Debbie and I. He and Emma, we went to lunch at their house, and we just talked about what it could be. And then we read the script, and I was like, yeah, that's cool. I think I can do it. I think I would enjoy.
By the way, we read the script with someone sitting in our driveway.
Yeah, because
and
we
we
couldn't
had
keep
a
it.
certain amount of time to read it. We would bring him out donuts, and then we all read it out loud.
Yeah, Wes
Me,
and
Zach
Debbie.
and Wes, yeah.
Yeah.
And then they took the script from us, and it was
It was cool.
very secretive.
It felt very like, like clandestine, and like we were reading some sort of secret document that we shouldn't have. But it was, and then I think from there I kind of was like, well, this is what I would do, and Chris liked that, and that's kind of how the movie happened. And I think that for me anyway, the idea of like this sort of 5-movie arc, this sort of big giant like spinning of a giant universe evolved pretty quickly from the production of Man of Steel, like as we were working on this movie, it really started to churn in me this idea of really building out this giant world for what this could be. Because I was anxious to get to the Trinity. Because the Trinity, to me, in the DC universe, is kind of like the tip of the spear, kind of like the most important thing. You know, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman standing together in a world that makes sense to those three characters was really what was really what it was all about for me. And the mission to do that, I got pretty early in my mind as far as what the goal would be, like the first step. And even like as we were doing this movie, Man of Steel, there's some little Easter eggs to LexCorp and to the Wayne Industries satellite and things like that. And because I had it in my head that that's what I would get to, and so how it's defined, like whether or not it is, or how it, I guess the better way of putting it is like my intention was not to necessarily have a definitive or certain take, but it was just that I had the thing I thought would be cool, and that's all it is. And it's not, and whatever that means, because like, look, we all know what's going to happen. There'll be another Superman and Batman origin film, and even then the one that's being talked about right now, there'll be one after that. And it is a cyclical thing. It's like some sort of Matrix universe where, like, you know, they all end up in the architect's house and he tells them that, like, no, you're not the first one. You're like the 10,000th one. So whatever, you know. So that's cool, and I'm happy to be whatever the third in the series of 1,000. So it's fine. But the truth is, it's really interesting mythological and cyclical work that I find really satisfying. So it's fun to do. It's really fun. Oh, well, that's fair.
And so
I'll agree with it. I don't know if it's true.
Just briefly.
Probably the 8th is the best, but that's fine. Just some sort of numerical thing, you know.
It's a good round number.
But that's fine. But the third is also not bad.
I'm trying to imagine when you went in to see Warner Brothers and you said, yeah, you know, Superman, he's going to be really pissed off a couple of times. And Batman, he's going to like brand people like they're on the Yellowstone Ranch, and it's going to be messed up. And they just go, okay, we're cool with that, Zach. Just let him be pissed.
I mean, I think the whole thing, my whole take on Superman is that, like, obviously, you know, my intention is not that Superman is angry. It's more that he is troubled by Earth because Earth is problematic for him. And the whole idea of Superman in its sort of iconographic form is that Superman, we were talking about it just as we were watching the movie, that, you know, the potential is that he doesn't have any problems, right? Like, he's a god on Earth, and he can pretty much do whatever he wants, and there's nothing really we don't have a lot to say about it, which is Lex's problem with him, and by the way, Batman's problem with him. And so, for Superman, the real work is to make him have problems, right? Like, that's the work of Superman, to make him have, whether it be romantic issues, like he can't like get the girl to like him that he likes, or whether it's like, you know, moral conundrums about what his role is as far as interfering in the lives of humans or not, or all of the issues that, you know, going against his father's wishes, all of the stuff that, and also all the stuff that we all in some ways experience on a small scale as just humans. That's really the work of making a Superman movie relatable, because otherwise, as you can imagine, you could really easily fall into a space where Superman, unless you're really efforting to contrive scenarios where he is not, where he's doing things that are difficult, is where you want to be. You want to be where he is emotionally having to grapple with his own humanity, And I think that was the goal of the movie. Really.
Well, thanks for that, because it kind of, I think in a big way, you just explained a big part of the appeal of these movies.
Yeah. No, because in the end, if you can empathize with Superman, then you've sort of won that. You've made Superman relatable, I guess, is the real thing. And I think that was the hope.
Cool. All right. Let us open this up for some questions from all of you all. I see one right over here. Lily, she's got the mic. We got somebody. So maybe stand up and we'll bring you a microphone so that they can hear you at home, as they say. Or will we? So you know what? We do. We have somebody with a microphone, but I don't know where she is.
They have it and they left.
She's
cool.
actually at the pawn shop now
I'll
with the
walk
microphone.
up. You go, Ross.
I'm walking.
I was going to say we can take this one.
I
off
am
here.
Vanna Whiting this.
More of a Phil Donahue, I think, but that's fine.
Hello.
Whew, sorry, nervous.
Wes.
Thank you guys for.
There he goes again, saving the day. Damn it.
Thank you guys so much for putting this together and inviting all of us to be able to be here. You talked about budgeting earlier, and you seem to be a director that is very efficient with your budgets, but I'm wondering if you were given a blank check, what is your dream story that you would like to tell?
A blank check. I don't know. That's a good one. That's a good. What's up? Aha! That's funny. I guess that's right. I mean, honestly, probably. Probably. I mean, blank check. I mean, you kind of. The scenario is pretty ludicrous, but I like it.
But isn't it
Question,
not
thank you.
not necessarily about the money always? It's sometimes about content that might be a little bit more pokey or controversial. We have some smaller projects that, might be even harder to get made because everyone wants the big blockbuster movies. So sometimes the smaller projects that don't take as much money are harder to actually get made.
Weirdly, that's true. If I go in and go like, look, I want to just give me $1 and I'm going to go do this thing, it's going to be crazy. They're like, yeah, okay, that's cool. We definitely want that. Yes to that. But in the meantime, could you just do this other giant thing that we want you to do? Once that's done, for sure, yes, definitely to the $1 thing. That's great. But is there any way you could just first and then that? How's that? And I'm like, okay, fine. That's my own problem. What? Shoot it in the driveway. Shoot it with your phone. Yeah, I have no problem with that, by the way. I have no problem with that. It's with the movie, it's fun actually to sort of talk about, the idea that we did, the last two movies. When I was in commercials, I was a director cameraman, right? So I which in commercials means director DP. And so it's funny because we did Army and I was like, okay, that worked pretty good. And then the movie we just did, shooting it was because it was much more of like a traditional, Army was all handheld and a lot of it was very particular. But this was really classic, it's a sci-fi movie, so everything has to be designed, all the lights, everything. And it was really a super fun exercise. For me, it kept me really in the movie, like deeply in every aspect of the movie. And I found that really satisfying. But you can imagine that a smaller movie would require that same skill set, but now you're working with like what you've got, you know, like, and I think that would be it would be fun to go do something really kind of smaller, but we'll see if they let me do that.
Cool. Let's see. Wow.
Without
they're
a blank check.
They're popping up all over the place. This gentleman right here, Lily, please stand up, sir.
Hello? Hello? Cool. Working? Okay, cool. Thank you. Great. Man of Steel is my favorite movie. I'm going to show you my tattoo.
Woo!
Saw it in theaters 10 years ago. Loved it. So my question is for Zach and Christina. How long did you know that Swanwick was going to be Martian Manhunter? And I know that the goal was to do Jon Stewart, but Carrie Ferris is, you know, Hal Jordan. So I was just wondering if you knew how that was going to work at all. Thanks.
Okay. As far as I was just saying it on the stream inside that the conversations around Martian Manhunter started like in post on Man of Steel. I mean, not on Man of Steel, on PBS. Because I was watching it, when we were watching in the editorial, I was like, you know, Swanwick. I don't know, but like, it's literally, we were talking about it earlier, like if you look at when Superman goes to the glass in Man of Steel and everyone backs up except for Swanwick, and that was a choice by the actor, I was like, oh, that was cool. And I was trying to decide whether that was like wrong, but I liked it. And I was like, no, that's cool. That's good. Yeah, do that. And I think that really, in retrospect, inspired this whole possibility. And so, yeah, that's my take. And I don't know what you thought.
Well, jumping off of that, I don't remember if it was like something that, it must have been something you posted on social media. But Harry and I have stayed friends over the years, so he texts me and he's like, "Have you seen this? Like, did you know?" Because it wasn't like a thing that was chatted about lightly on set, but it was cool, and I know Harry was so excited. It was so cool. Yeah.
Harry was very happy about it. Yeah. And he's also awesome. He's literally the coolest guy in the world, so. Yeah. Yeah, we should have had him out too. I think he's in New York, isn't he?
Yeah, he's done.
Yeah, so. Although he might have flown out because he loves that.
He would have. He's gonna be jealous. Yeah. Harry's so generous. Like, he has been in my husband's indie films. He loves my husband very generously. And has just been like and if you look at his IMDb, he's in like 7 trillion things because he just supports everybody. and he's so lovely and gracious, and I can't sing his praises enough.
I know, nor can I. And the voice. The voice is insane. We have to get him to do like some Shakespeare again somehow.
You don't have to he'll just do it for
Yeah,
you.
right. That's
he
true.
Loves.
That's true. Just say, do Shakespeare.
He's made his own movies, actually. If you look, like, he's directed, like, he produces and directs stuff, and he's played some Shakespearean roles.
All right, so you guys know what to do.
Wow, look at this.
Great question.
Let me go in the back because it's mean to go do people just in the front. I see a woman in. Oh no, I'm sorry. That's actually a man's hand. He has. Yeah, I'm reading his mind. He has a mask on. Please stand up, sir.
Hi, Zach. Okay, this is working, I guess. Yeah. So my question's for you. So Man of Steel and BVS were like the last time you released a movie in 3D, which was like over 7 years ago, or yeah, about 7 years ago at this point. So like,
Yeah, I forgot about 3D. Yes, go on.
So with Avatar, Avatar 2, kind of like reigniting like interest in that. I just wanted to ask you, like, well, firstly, like, if you've seen it, like, how do you like it? And secondly, like, what your thoughts on the format are overall, and if you like have any plans to shoot any movies, like, natively in 3D in the future, or like do any conversions or something like that, you know?
Okay, that's cool. Cool 3D question. Avatar, awesome.
Excuse me.
Yeah, just loved it. That's cool. As far as 3D goes, do I have any plans to shoot anything in native 3D? No, I do not. I forgot about that format. I'll be 100% honest. It's cool to see it. I have no issue with it existing. I love it, but yeah, I don't know if I'm doing any 3D, especially native 3D. And Netflix is kind of hard for your 3D. Although I don't know, like, can they do that?
Strap 2 TVs to your head.
2 TVs. Yeah.
Actually, we were screening one of your films, and it was in 3D or flat, and we were at the theater, and somebody said, "Would you like to see this in 3D or flat?" And we both shouted flat at exactly the same time. I actually remember that happening.
I think the best 3D, Guardians of Gaul is the best 3D movie. If you want, I mean, I don't know if that's even like if you could see it in 3D anywhere, but I remember seeing it going like, okay, yep, that's cool. That makes sense. Yeah. But, and you know, you said, what was the last 3D movie? Was BVS? Yeah. I don't know if I've even, I mean, I think I approved it in 3D, but I don't think I like watched it. I was too obsessed with like the special edition. So, like, yeah. Anyway. Alex, did we do anything? Did you do anything different for 3D? Did you think about the movie? I mean, because did we talk about it? I think we did. We did have it. It was a 3D movie in our minds when we were planning it.
I think everything is 3D.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's a good
Everything
point.
is ready for 3D.
Even in
the
2D, it's
design.
3D, I guess,
Yeah.
is a good point. Yeah, that's what depth of field is for, isn't it? But yeah, because I remember I had a meeting with Jim Cameron. I think it was right before we did Superman, and he was wanting us to shoot the movie natively. He was saying, like, well, you're going to shoot the movie natively in 3D, aren't you? And I was like, I don't know. Yes, Jim. That's a great idea. But then, you know, it was a film show, and I didn't know, you know, that was problematic, you know, to shoot a 3D film show because you need 2 cameras all the time. So that would have been, yeah, you know, or a beam splitter. I guess even with the beam, you still need 2 cameras. Yeah. So yeah, that's hard. That would have been hard. And handheld. I didn't see that happening. It's like 2 Panavision Golds like through a beam splitter. That's a lot of cameras. But so yeah, it's interesting.
You know, all this talk about the future being the past now. Alex, are you going to be using AI in your workflow? Do you want to? Do you not want to? Are you using it? What are you doing with it? What do you think of it? All of that stuff.
It's an interesting time, isn't it? I think it's a fantastic augmentation of what we do. I think the problem right now is people think it's going to replace what we do, and there's obviously everyone's very threatened by it. I think a script written by AI is not going to make a good movie. I think but you know, we're looking at a lot of art, obviously, and I teach at USC, and I teach world building and design, but I teach it to students who are not necessarily designers, and so for them it's an amazing medium. They may not have the visual skills, but they can talk what's in their mind, and so I think it has enormous potential. It's going to be embedded in everything we do, but I think that, well, you know, one of the things I believe is that we will always survive AI because we make mistakes all the time, and the intelligence is going to be seen as failure if it makes mistakes, in the sense of the intuitive and the deliberate and the essentially we're stupid, and therefore we will survive any kind of AI attack for our human center.
Yeah, the very thing that like we would say like, oh, look at the personality of this piece would be the thing that the AI would say like, God damn it, like I fucked up. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, they'll never get AI to write a script because they can't teach it to procrastinate, oversleep, have 4 cats, feel sorry for itself. Yeah, that ain't happening.
That's true.
Questions? Boy, there are so many of them. I see a man here with his, yes, he's pointing at his head. So that must mean he's smart.
First of all, Zach and Deb, I just want to say on behalf of the East Coast contingent and especially the city of Detroit, we want to thank you for coming to Film BVS there.
Thank you.
It was a really
Our
big
pleasure.
deal. It was a really big deal for us. I know they shut down the production facilities there. It was a huge drag for everybody. So we're glad that you're able to come and do that for us. Philosophically, as storytellers, now this is for Zach and for Deborah, you're known as a very detail-oriented storyteller. Your plotting is very tight. It really requires people to pay attention in a way that maybe other films don't require of them. Is there any time through the testing process or when you're going through other producers at the studio or something like that where they think maybe the films are too tight, you're asking too much of the audience, they're getting lost, they're making mistakes when they go online and saying stupid shit over and over and over again for 10 goddamn years? Is there ever a point where you have felt like, okay, maybe we need to loosen this up a little bit because we're relying on the audience to be maybe a little smarter than maybe sometimes they are?
Go ahead.
I mean, look, it's not even like that we think about it in that way. Yes, when we show a movie and things that I think are obvious, sometimes maybe not to everybody. But I always think that like if it's there, if it's in the movie and I know it's there, then it makes sense. Like if the movie, even if you have to look for it, you'll find it. You know what I mean? It's not like it's not there. And so a thing that you might be confused about in the movie, like you would think that at a certain point that a movie that's made with, all the planning that we have, and you come to a moment in the movie where you're like, wait, that doesn't make sense. They never set up that character. Like, that can't be true. Like, it's probably not the case, right? It's probably not the case that the character is not set up correctly. Now, yes, there are times where for time or for editorial or for whatever reason, you do certain things, you make certain cuts, you make certain compromises, and the movie, mostly it can be, certainly certain storylines can be made smaller or made to feel like they don't matter or that they don't exist at all. That would affect, if you had seen the overall original concept, you'd have been like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I think more than do we go like, oh, should we be more careful and make it a little broader or a little less complicated? More than that, it's just that we have the complicated thing to begin with, and we end up like, hacking a limb off of it in order for it to like fit in a box, and that's painful, but for a piece of mass entertainment, sometimes, you sacrifice, a detail for, viewability, I guess, is a way to sort of think about it. I don't know. Does that make sense, Debbie?
Yeah, and I think to go back to process a little bit, Many of you know that Zach draws the entire film, and it's a process that I hate, actually, because we're prepping all day and working, and then he draws, and all weekend he's drawing. And it's like, I don't even mind when he's writing, because he writes the script, it's so many pages, but the actual...
I procrastinate.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah.
But the frames take so long to draw because he's really making it in his head and he's thinking about it. But what it allows for is for all the teams to be on the same page. And we actually don't share these with anyone but the crew. They don't go to the studio. They see them later and they go, wow, we should publish those, or something like that. But it gives us, I think, just so much information which is helpful to everyone. So I feel like, I don't know, is it tight? It allows us to actually, I think, save money and give us more money for the spectacle and things like that, because for like Alex, he knows exactly what Zach's shooting. Like there's some directors that like, okay, we're shooting in this room, and they come in and like, you have to make that whole room because you don't know where they're going to be looking and what they're going to be doing. But a lot of times Zach would sit with Alex and be like, okay, I just need these 2 walls.
Well, Watchmen, for sure.
And, oh yeah, in Watchmen, we had that big backlot, and it was like we shot every single piece of it. So we built it in a way that, you know, we were able to build so many more things and give it much scope and scale, right?
Yeah, I totally support that. I mean, we are asked to make many movies where the director doesn't have a clear idea. And you waste a lot of time and you waste a lot of money. Because, you know, so I think for us, we're always waiting for Zach's drawings and then sitting with the drawings, and then we're planning around that. And there's an exchange of the research or the drawings that are inspired by what Zach does, and then that moves us towards a kind of process of being able to zero in on that fine level of detail, which I think is the other thing that was so satisfying about Watchmen and Man of Steel both, is that with that level of precision, you can get into so much detail. You can get into 4-legged turkeys, for example. You know, if you spot the
it's cool
four-legged
because
turkey.
like that, I mean, that was the thing about, you know, what the experience on Watchmen for me was that, you know, the guys would just, Alex would just take the drawings and like amplify it on such an awesome level that like it would be, you know, you always hope that that you do a drawing and you're like, okay, well, it'd be cool if it's kind of like this, you know, I think. And then I'd come in and be like, wow, that's better than what I thought. You know, it was a cool, you know, because it was such a great, Alex did such a great job of taking the comic book on this hand and my drawings on that hand, and having then sort of the satirical reality of what we perceived as the 20th century, basically, and like sort of found this great, you know, sort of meeting of those 3 things. You know, even just like in the talk shows, you know, we had a few talk shows in the movie. I was always like really in love with the talk show sets and or news sets, because they were like that perfect weirdo reality that reminded you of the talk show, but it wasn't the talk show exactly that you knew, but it was like this beautiful extract. It was like someone had squeezed or like made concentrate out of a pop culture event, and then it existed in a, you know, like there it was, but it was like not, it wasn't anything you could say that's that, but it was all of the things at the same time, but and not a cliche. It was just this really cool alchemy of, and in a lot of ways, the comic book is that, you know, even from moment to moment, you know, like one of my favorite things, and it's not really in the comic book, was in the title sequence of that Studio 54 shot with Ozymandias and, you know, Mick Jagger and Ziggy Stardust, and like this idea that like you could extrapolate the why of masked vigilantes being in this sort of like flamboyant costumes based on sort of excess and glamour and fashion, and like this weirdo like juxtaposition of like also New York City in the 70s. It's just like a cool, I don't know, like those are the kind of things that I just thought were like really amazing. So yeah, that's cool. I don't even know.
Watchmen's a Watchmen's a great example of the process, isn't it? Because it's the comic book was the first time I realized that a comic book was, I mean, Watchmen, the comic book was really 5-dimensional. There's so many stories. When you're looking at a page, the stories go crosswise and left to right and right to left, and then there's embedded clues like four-legged turkeys. And but to make sense of that, you've got to really extract the parts of it that matter. And it goes back to Zack drawing. It's like, how the hell do you make a movie out of a world as complex as that? It's that kind of fine weaving through and pulling out what really matters. But the comic book then for us becomes a fantastic visual source, because you've got to support the iconography and the kind of surreality of all of the parts. Yeah.
Yeah, I would cut it out.
Mm-hmm.
I was like my drawings, and like literally, if you look at, I don't know, I've probably shown it a couple times to a lot of people, have probably seen it, but like if you look at the drawings I've done of the title sequence of Watchmen, it is a weirdo collage scrapbook of it's frames from the graphic novel and like pop culture, and like whether it be like, you know, Norman Rockwell or, you know, the Enola Gay or whatever it is, like all the things. It's like this really Ouija, all the stuff, you know, and all the way to Action Comics. You know, it has its, because that comic book and that piece of mythology is linked back to, because it deconstructs comic book heroes, it is self-reflexive. So it says, okay, it doesn't acknowledge that, or it does acknowledge, but kind of pretends like it's not a comic book, you know? So it has this amazing, like, a bit, you know, it's like, it's saying that reality, like just the simple fact that in that world comics don't exist, and so pirate comic books are the comic books, right? Pirate heroes are the superheroes because superheroes are real. So like that little game of deconstruction is the game that we then play with every single thing, like on every level, every idea, every like nuance, whether it be nuclear war or war with the Russians or, you know, Dr. Strangelove and all the things that we kept mixing into the pot were all meant to make the original sort of thesis of the comic book, you know, reinforce it. And I think that was a super fun, for that reason, it was amazingly satisfying and fun to do that, because it was like every day we'd show up and it'd be another crazy thing, like it's a crazy Nixon, like, you know, doing his crazy, you know, whatever, just fun. It's just like, you know, it was a good time. That was good.
Wow. This is, I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in because I've got a question from the online group, and it's perfect because we're looking at the other half of the movie. They're asking about, and this is for Zack and Debbie, your amazing attention to sound design. Because everybody goes, oh, well, Zack, he's a visionary, you know. The sound design is extraordinary, and there's obviously nothing in there by mistake. It's consistent through the films. And so tell us a little bit about how your process for putting these soundscapes together.
We work with this amazing sound designer, Scott Hecker, who has worked on every single movie since Dawn.
Yeah.
And we start really early in the process with Scott, and we will say, hey, like the world engines.
Yeah,
were
he
like
was
a
working. We
huge
had the
thing.
world engine sounds while we were shooting.
We were like, what does this sound like? Or whether it's, you know, when we did the zombies in Army of the Dead, we wanted them to sound different. What do they look like? What do they sound like? And here's what they look like. And, you know, I think that dialogue, you wouldn't think it would start that early, but it starts with showing him some of the art, sometimes some of the footage. So then when we're in the edit room, because, you know, that you have 12 weeks after you're done shooting, 2 weeks for the editor, and then 10 weeks for Zach to present that director's cut. And you're working and working. So if you just start then, the same thing with music, like whether it be Hans or Junkie, they start really early on, you know, getting into character and presenting suites of music that, you know, they haven't even seen pictures. Sometimes it's when we're prepping and they're just working on it from the script and discussions. A lot of times Zach will create these mixtapes that he listens to when he's drawing. And like for Watchmen, we actually
they're not
had
on
a lot of
tape
them.
anymore. They're...
Oh, that is true. Sorry, but
Although I should go back to that. That'd be cool. I just
Leak
saw
your
that. I think
Spotify.
on... Where did I see that? Like, was it on...
Playlists.
Was it on like... I think it's on... Was it on Instagram today? Or like it was on Uncreate? I don't know. Like they had this like cassette player. And it was like a new one. It was like an update. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm going to buy that. So I can make some mixtapes.
Okay, playlists.
I like
playlists.
mixtapes. Don't get me...
So I think it just starts really early, and I think that, you know, it's about story and it's about character and the sounds, whether it's the sound of a particular space. We're working on space weapons right now. We've been working on those for a long time to figure out the perfect sound for those things, or the sound of the ships or whatever. Like, it's, you know, I think that just spending as much time developing the soundscapes than we do with the visual language is why, you know, Zach also loves sound, so we always have a lot of it in the film.
Yeah, I do. I do love sound. I always say, Scott and I's favorite thing to say is I'd be like, I go, well, like any noise that is like a door closing or like that, you know, I go like, you should get like a safe door and record it. Like, go, like that should be the sound. He's like, well, it's like a cabinet. It doesn't really make sense. You know, that the guy would, I'm like, well, still should be a safe door. Like everything should be safe. Bigger safe door. Like a smaller, like a range of safe doors, but like a really huge one for, you know, anything that's kind of bigger than than that. But yeah, no, Scott loves that because he's always like, yeah, let's do it. Yeah, he's like, sound is a weapon. That's what he always says. Because we'll be in the mix and I'll be like, oh, my ears are bleeding. And he'll say, then he's like, sound is a weapon. Be careful. Keep the dog. Like we were mixing the other day and there was like a dog there. The dog has to leave the mix stage or we have to put little headphones on it because it's too loud for the little dog. But it's true.
Well, you certainly got to hear it tonight, you know, in this theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. That's Dolby Atmos. Thank you very much. There's 90 speakers in here. And
That's
when
good.
you have a good movie where people know what they're doing, it kind of kicks ass.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. So it's pretty cool. So I think we have someone up in the front here. Here comes Lily. She's Vanna White.
Should I stand or is that redundant?
Sure, stand
Well, I
up.
can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, face that way. No, I'm just kidding. You don't have to.
Okay, so I would really love to get an insight into your world building for Krypton because even though it's not got a lot of presence as far as runtime goes, it's incredibly dense with socio-political commentary. It's like a really heavy allegory for the military-industrial complex and the climate crisis. You know, you have these they're very clearly representative of like Western leaders who do nothing about the climate crisis that we're all having to deal with right now. And there's a polar bear, which like, why is there a polar bear in the movie if you're not talking about the climate crisis?
Yeah, we got the polar bear.
But yeah, it's just
We got
like,
him from IMAX, by the way, which
like
is cool.
It's a highly militaristic
gift.
society that, you know, they have an affinity for eugenics and like they're bragging about not having a moral compass. So it's really densely packed, even though there's not a lot there as far as, like I said, runtime goes. So yeah, any insight you can offer into that because I find it really fascinating.
I mean, the only thing yeah, there's a lot. I mean, yes, thank you, great question, and there's a lot to unpack with that. We could do like probably an hour of that. But and then I'll let Alex talk about the design because he did touch on it, but I think there's more there. I guess for me, it was like, you know, yes, it's a small part of the movie. Well, small, what is it, 20 minutes or something like that, or maybe less. And we knew, like, but you have to sort of do the work of making a credible world for Superman to come from. And so I think that work of, and also, you know, honor canon, kind of understand, even just on a sort of purely comic book level, you have that to do. That's the first layer. Then Goyer's script had a lot of a lot of that stuff in it, and we talked a lot about, you know, whether it be the climate crisis or whether it be like, you know, denial of how these events are going to like flesh out, and sort of like this, and then also, you know, of course, Zod and like, you know, Zod's take, this sort of coup. And also, I think the thing about Zod that's really interesting is his like, you could argue whether or not he's right, you know, like that's what makes him interesting, right? Because like from his point of view, you know, he also like thinks they're crazy, right? That the politicians don't get it. So it's like, but is his method the correct method, you know, like, so like all of those layers, I think were informative in that in discussions, we would say like, how do you then visualize like a world like that and also make it beautiful, right? Because in a weird way, it still has to be like compelling and beautiful, like no matter what, like even if, you know, Jor-El's house looks like a giant penis. But there's a reason, you know, there's a why to it. And I think I was like I thought that was awesome, by the way. And I think that the Citadel is very like very strong and very, well, they were trying to, you know what they're trying to do in there. So it's very interesting. It's very cool. But anyway, I guess my point is that, you know, that goes back to what we were just talking about, I think, as far as, you know, you have story, you have intent, and then Alex has a really hard job because he has to, like, none of that stuff exists, right? Like, you know, Krypton is a mythological place and it doesn't exist even as it does in the movie. So like, even if you were going to go look at historical Krypton as it is in the comic books or in movies, we weren't going to do that. Like, we were going to be like, no, okay, can we learn from it? Yes. Can it inform? Yes. But I think in the end, because our story is so particular, the design has to service that story. But of course, without denying and or contradicting the canon and tradition in some way. So that's the challenge anyway.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the form language, and there is a lot of penis in there.
Thank God. There's a lot of vaginas in the scout ship, which is also great.
Absolutely.
So it's.
But I think what you're
not hard to see, I think.
Gender equality.
It's not a
That's
surprise.
What, you know,
Yes.
we're always
Represent. You got to represent.
But you're asking about the mythology, and I think that's where, I mean, the opportunity to build Krypton really from scratch and build 150,000 years, 100,000 years of deep history, and to be able to follow the destruction or the self-destruction and why that happens, and why the glyphs that they're wearing, you know, the S is not an S, or the glyph on Zod's chest is tied back into the idea of these clans that essentially drill down into their own culture so much that they eliminate science, and so we've got this incredible world to start with, but then we have to sort of invent from the ground up, and the through line and the holistic kind of consistency of the world in design is crucial, and the level of detail that you put into it may not be on the surface, but it informs the surface. So I think the example that was incredibly satisfying, I've never done since, never been asked to do before, was when Zack wanted a language, where to begin with, I think you wanted a language that they could speak,
Yeah, my original concept was that on Krypton, it was all going to be subtitled, and they were going to like learn Kryptonian, and that was going to be just how the movie was. Like they were like you wouldn't. And then my original idea was like no subtitles, like it's like Passion of the Christ. It's like Aramaic or something. Like you just have to kind of understand. Like you have to just sort of figure it out from the content. That was exactly. That was how like crazy it was at the beginning. And then it was like you're insane.
Yeah, I think I said, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah. I was like, but like, isn't that cooler? Like I don't know.
But it actually wove through all of Krypton in the end because you asked that question. And then we hired a linguist anthropologist who invented an entire language from the ground up and a numeric system, and it related to the idea that the object was so important in the society that it created changed the structure of the sentences. So if you have your Krypton dictionary, you can actually decipher a lot of the the writing on the objects because it's all real, it's all translated, it's all based on the language that Zack wanted them to speak, basically. But then it informs the visuals, like the S informs the visuals. The shape of the language embeds itself in the shape of the biology lab and actually the creatures and particularly the ships, because you're right that Krypton's there in the first 20 minutes, but the design of the ships and the behavior of the ships and the costumes, that weaves through the whole film. And you never forget Krypton because the core visual language and that early work that we did informs every single aspect of how that world works. And the inside of a ship, in a way, is just a continuation of Krypton.
Wow. All right, so I totally lost track of time because I'm having too damn much fun. So I think we have time for two more before we let everybody go home. Let's see. There's so many hands up. I see a woman right on the end there. She's waving. She's going to stand up. Poor Lily has to schlep clear across the stage.
Hello. Zach and Debbie, I'm a video production major, and many people consider the action genre to be a boys' club. However, I believe your films depict women as powerful and autonomous and contain many nuanced examples of gender theory. Can you speak on the intentionality in which you portray the women in your films, specifically in Man of Steel?
Wow. You want me to go? You can go.
I'm going to go on this one.
Okay, good.
I think what was amazing when we were talking about the characters and working with David Goyer on the script was that I think traditionally Superman was always saving Lois, right? And I feel like in our film, they save each other. She saves him as much as he saves her. And I think that was really important, and I do think like all of our films have really strong female characters. I think Zack is definitely not threatened by strong women in his life. And we try and surround ourselves, we always talk about what's in the script. We always talk about the character. A lot of times we talk about female directors, but it's just as important for all the technical positions because there are like 500 people on these big movies, sometimes 1,000 on a day if you're counting construction. And I was always so tired of looking around, and I love men. Listen, I like working with them. It's great. I'm very comfortable with that, but I also want to see more women behind the camera. And we've really tried to have really strong female positions in, like, our AD is a woman. We've hired our best boy is a woman that we've been working with, in just very big, and as heads of departments. And we've also, one of the things that's been super important to me was to bring young women, not necessarily women who are in film school, because everyone's in film school are already there. They know what at least film is all about. But high schools, and we've worked with programs with lower income students to bring them, and particularly women, on set so they can see all the different roles that there are. So, it is very important to have these characters on screen, but to me, it's also equally important to have the crew be represented too.
Really good point. All right, you're
cool.
on the spot, sir. You get the last question.
Right here, should I just yell it out?
No, we need a mic so that the people at home can hear.
Oh, okay. All right. So I spent a bit thinking about this. Zach, love your work, always have. Talk about your cinematography, because I feel like you, more so than many other comic directors, have a style where you almost like the framing always looks like it's a comic book panel, like Justice League. Almost that whole movie looks like a walking comic book. Just tell me I know you draw, but tell me like some of your thought process, what goes into your cinematography. Thank you.
Thank you. That's good. Appreciate that. Yeah, I guess it does start with the drawings, and as far as for me anyway, like as far as how I'm sort of visual. I know that it's a tool for everyone, but it also for me, like the drawing is the first time I make the movie, the first time I sort of like sort of compositionally and from a story standpoint and like as a piece, I do like as best I can. I like each frame to have a little bit of a beginning, middle, and end as best I can. And I think that's probably why it has an illustrative quality, because like an illustration, which is whether it be a comic book drawing or painting or whatever, it really relies on that one frame to tell its entire story. It has to convey, it has to have a beginning, middle, and end. It has to have depth. It has to have be emotional, be world building. It has to be everything in a single moment. It doesn't really have the opportunity to say like, oh, don't wait for the next painting, for you to figure out what's happening in this one. Like that's not really how classically how sort of less linear art forms, like whether it be a sculpture or a photograph or a painting, sort of exist. They exist sort of in a singular moment. Film, of course, and other sort of mixed media that expresses itself across time or expresses itself in multiple images or multiple environments, whether it be like installation or whatever, can exist as a sort of progressive like experience, like as you move forward, like, oh, you're getting more information. But like when you make an image for a film, if you can do it if you can sort of treat each shot, even though you are in this sort of, movement, you can, I think you can, even though I'm not successful in every frame, I don't think the attempt is there by me to make it feel as if this frame has a beginning, middle, and end. It could exist on its own. It doesn't necessarily need the image before it or after it for itself. Now, that doesn't mean like as the giant puzzle that is the movie, it is a single piece and it needs the other pieces to tell the greater story. But for itself, just like we don't know how our story affects like the whole of humanity, our singular self, but we are complete as ourselves. And so, but we are part of this big tapestry. So I think that's a way of thinking about it. Like when you go to make a shot, and now I don't mean to be like instructive, but like if you're a filmmaker and you're going to make a shot, if that is even in the smallest way in your consciousness, that like, wow, what about this shot? Because the truth is, if you know anything about the way a movie set works, it's like, okay, we got to get the shot of them coming in the door and sitting down and taking the pencil out and starting to write the thing. So you're like, okay, cool. Like, okay, like I guess the door's over there. So, you know, in order to see them come through it, we're going to point the camera at the door. You know, you're not like, you know, it's interesting because the 2/3, if I put the framing, like, you know, that'd be great if you did that every time. And trust me, I endeavor to, but a lot of times they're like, look, we got 5 minutes before, like, we got to leave. Like, if we don't get the shot of the kid now, the kid's going to go off the clock, and that's it. You don't get to film the kid anymore. So you're like, okay, all right, just like, how about it like this? You know, like, we'll see if we can capture them on film in some way, like walking across the room. So there are those moments as well. You know, it's just like the reality of just madness that is motion picture photography. But if at all possible, to endeavor to make a frame that you find aesthetically compelling, I think that's really where it, and also I would say to any filmmakers out there, and any, whether it's a movie or a painting or a photograph, whatever you're doing, you know, you are also the prism of the thing. You know, like the AI doesn't have the ability, like you want, as a viewer, I want this prism between me and the reality that the filmmaker puts on. Like, so you have your experience, you walk around the world, you see things, you feel things, and then when you make a movie, it goes through you and onto the screen. And I, as a human being, want that. I want your touch, your personality, your way of seeing on screen, so I can have an empathetic human experience by what you put on screen. And I think that is the way I kind of try anyway, to think about the way I photograph things, you know, because, you know, I had a teacher here at Art Center, this guy named Paul Jasmine, amazing photographer, and he said, you know, it doesn't matter, like the camera, none of it matters, like the quality of the camera, all that matters is your point of view. That's it. That's all you have as a filmmaker and as an artist, is the way you see. Like, no one can know the way you see, and the only way to get into your head and to see how you see is for you to make something that allows me to sort of experience that in some small way. So, like, that's the job of you filmmakers, is to, like, let me see through your eyes. So that's what I try and do. So that's what I hope you guys do.
That is awesome right there, and so true. So I'm going to wrap up my part of this by just giving you guys a quick story about what it's really like in film school, and then I'll lob it over to Zach and Debbie, who can kind of close us out. So I heard this from one of our instructors a few days ago. They were in a classroom in this room screening their work, and because Zach and Debbie and Wes were so instrumental in getting this going, the conversation turns to Zach. And everybody's, you know, kind of talking about his films and what have you. And then one of the students, sort of apropos of nothing, says, most film directors are so ugly, but Zach is handsome.
That's nice.
I thought, okay. Yeah.
That's a good way to end this whole conversation.
Enough with that.
I don't think it's really kind of.
Beautiful man.
On the inside too.
Debbie agrees. I hope.
I think he's
So
hot.
that's it. That's it.
Although I did say to the,
I don't know what that has to do with film school. But that's cool.
it's because
I mean, I'm not contradicting the analysis. I feel like that's.
I'd take it. I would take it. But then I asked the instructor, I said, the student does know that you're a film director, right? And he goes, yeah, he knows. Tough room.
That's cool. Well, all I'll say is that I don't think that's a requirement of motion picture. And I think there's a lot of handsome movie directors out there. I think it's kind of a rude thing to say. I feel like that's not cool.
It was really